Biohazard Symphony, The Last Stand. Chapter 1. The outbreak. The streets were a ghost town as a deadly virus swept across the planet. Homes were barricaded, and people huddled in fear behind closed doors. The virus ravaged the human body within days, causing a gruesome death. Hospitals overflowed with the infected, and those who tended to the sick contracted the disease themselves, creating an endless cycle of suffering. The world's brightest minds were trying to find a cure, but it seemed that this virus was immune to everything they threw at it. The governments issued strict lockdowns, mandating masks and social distancing as the only defense. Still, the virus spread, and soon the entire world was plunged into darkness. Jack, a brilliant scientist, was struggling to find a cure. He had isolated a few key proteins in the virus, but nothing seemed to work. Frustrated and exhausted, he decided to go for a walk to clear his head. As he strolled through the deserted streets, he noticed something strange. There was a group of people gathered around a building, and they were staring up at the sky. Jack approached them, and as he lifted his gaze to the heavens, he saw something that made him gasp. There was a huge, black spaceship hovering silently in the sky. It was unlike anything Jack had ever seen before, and he knew that it was not of this world. As he stared in amazement, a beam of light shot out of the ship and hit the ground. The people around Jack ran away screaming, but he stayed rooted to the spot. As the light surrounded him, he felt a strange sensation wash over him, and then everything went black. When Jack came to, he was lying on the ground in a strange room. The walls were made of a shimmering material that seemed almost alive, and the air was thick with a strange energy. He looked down at his hands and gasped in horror as he realized that they had been fused with his lab coat. Suddenly, there was a noise, and Jack whirled around to see an alien standing before him. It was tall and thin, with a scaly gray skin and huge, black eyes. Jack tried to speak, but his vocal cords had been altered, and he could only make strange clicking sounds. The alien reached out a hand, and Jack felt a surge of panic as he realized what was about to happen. The creature touched him, and he felt a flash of pain as his body was altered once again. When it was over, Jack felt different. He could sense things that he couldn't before, and his mind felt sharper, more focused. The alien spoke to him, and although Jack couldn't understand the words, he got the impression that he was being recruited for something. As they left the ship, Jack felt a sense of dread wash over him. He was no longer human, and he didn't know what the aliens had in store for him. But as they walked through the deserted streets, he realized that he might be humanity's only hope. Chapter 2. The road. Jack woke up in a cold sweat, flashes of the abduction still fresh in his mind. He knew that he had been changed, enhanced in ways he couldn't even begin to comprehend. But he didn't have time to dwell on it. He had to find a way to stop the virus that was ravaging the planet. He gathered his supplies and headed out onto the road, unsure of what he would find. The world was still barren, devoid of all of its usual bustle and chaos. Jack trudged along, his mind racing as he tried to figure out what his next move would be. As he walked, he noticed that the air felt different. There was a strange energy thrumming through the atmosphere, and Jack felt his senses heighten as he breathed it in. After several hours of walking, Jack came across a small group of survivors who had settled in an abandoned gas station. They were surprised to see Jack, and they peppered him with questions and concerns. Jack explained that he had been modified and was now different from a regular human. The group was hesitant but intrigued. They had never seen anyone like Jack before, and they hoped that he could help them in some way. As they talked, Jack began to realize that he was able to sense things that he never could before. He could feel the virus pulsing through the air, almost as if it had a life force of its own. He decided to lead the group to a nearby hospital where he had heard that the virus was still running rampant. They came across a checkpoint where a group of soldiers had barricaded themselves in against the virus. The soldiers were surprised to see Jack when he approached them, and they were even more taken aback when they realized what he could do. Jack was able to sense the virus in the air, and he pinpointed the source of the outbreak. It was coming from a lab deep within the hospital. The soldiers were skeptical but decided to follow Jack's lead. They broke into the lab and found a team of scientists who had been working tirelessly to create a cure. Using his enhanced abilities, Jack was able to work with the scientists to create a serum that would cure the virus. They called it the Jack Serum. Jack and the group of survivors returned to the gas station, where they set up a makeshift laboratory. They began producing the serum in large quantities, and within weeks, they had managed to cure everyone in their group. They decided to take the serum on the road, offering it to any survivors they came across. Jack's enhanced abilities made him an invaluable asset, allowing him to identify outbreaks quickly and administer the serum to those who needed it. As they traveled, Jack realized that he wasn't just a human anymore. He was something more, something greater. He was a savior, a protector, and he knew that he would stop at nothing until the virus had been eradicated for good. Chapter 3. The Safe Zone. As Jack continued to travel, distributing the Jack Serum to those in need, he came across something unexpected: a safe zone. It was a small community of survivors who had banded together for protection against the virus. They had built walls and barricades around their town, and they had formed a tight-knit group that worked together to maintain their safety. Jack was hesitant to enter the safe zone at first, but he knew that he had to if he wanted to continue his mission. He approached the gate and identified himself, explaining who he was and what he could do. To his surprise, the residents of the safe zone welcomed him with open arms. They were impressed by Jack's abilities, and they immediately put him to work. He helped to develop a system that would alert them to any outbreaks and enabled them to administer the serum quickly. As Jack settled into the safe zone, he began to feel a sense of belonging that he hadn't experienced since before the outbreak. He found himself growing close to some of the other survivors, especially a woman named Sarah. Sarah was the town's lead scientist, and she worked closely with Jack to develop new methods of detecting outbreaks and administering the serum. They spent long hours in the lab together, and Jack found himself drawn to her intelligence and spunk. Over time, Jack and Sarah grew closer, and they eventually started a relationship. Jack had never thought he could find love in a time like this, but Sarah made him feel hopeful and alive. As the weeks went by, Jack and the residents of the safe zone began to feel a sense of security they hadn't felt in a long time. They knew the virus was still out there, but they were confident in their ability to detect and cure it quickly. That confidence was shattered one day when they received a distress signal from a nearby town. An outbreak had occurred, and Jack and a group of other survivors rushed to offer their assistance. When Jack entered the town, he was hit with a wave of familiarity. It was the same town where he had been abducted by the aliens. As he searched for survivors, he stumbled upon a group of the same aliens who had altered his body. He was paralyzed with fear as they approached him, but instead of attacking, the aliens informed him that the virus was their doing. They had created it as a defense mechanism against the humans who had been polluting their planet, and they had been trying to destroy us all along. Jack was stunned. He had been fighting against the virus for so long, never realizing that there was a sinister force behind it all. The aliens gave Jack a choice: join them in their mission to eliminate the humans, or suffer the consequences. Jack had to make a decision: stay with Sarah and the residents of the safe zone and fight against the virus, or join the aliens in their mission to destroy humanity. Chapter 4. The Resistance. Jack stood in the rubble of the town, reeling from the revelation that the aliens had created the virus. He knew that he couldn't join them, but he couldn't stand by and watch them wipe out humanity either. He had to find a way to stop them. Jack returned to the safe zone and told Sarah and the others what he had learned. They were shocked, but they all agreed that they had to band together to fight against the aliens. They formed a resistance group, uniting survivors from all over the world who were also fighting against the virus. They worked to develop a plan to take on the aliens, to find a way to stop them and save humanity. As the resistance grew, Jack's abilities became even more pronounced. He could sense the aliens' movements, and he led the resistance on raids against their operations, sabotaging their plans whenever possible. But the aliens were powerful, and they fought back with equal force. The resistance suffered heavy losses, and Jack began to wonder if they would ever be able to win. Then, one day, a breakthrough came. Sarah had discovered a way to create a virus that would attack the aliens specifically, using the same proteins that Jack had discovered in the human virus. They called it the alien serum. With the help of the resistance, Jack and Sarah managed to distribute the serum throughout the world. The aliens were caught off guard and began to suffer the same symptoms as the humans had. They began to die. The war was over, and humanity had won. In the aftermath of the battle, Jack and Sarah were hailed as heroes. Jack had discovered the key to stopping the virus, and Sarah had created the weapon that had brought down the aliens. They knew that they couldn't let their guard down, that there would always be threats to humanity. But they were confident that they could face these threats together, with the help of the resistance and the Jack and alien serums in their arsenal. Jack and Sarah knew that the world would never be the same as it was before the outbreak, but they were hopeful that they could build a new world, a better world, for the survivors of the virus. Together, they stood strong, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Chapter 5. The final battle. Jack and Sarah had thought that the war was over, but they were wrong. The aliens had one final trick up their sleeves, and it was more deadly than anything they had faced before. The aliens had created a megavirus, one that was designed to wipe out humanity once and for all. And they had chosen Jack to help them spread it. Jack was horrified when he was contacted by the aliens again. They demanded that he join them or suffer the consequences. But Jack refused. and he knew that he had to find a way to stop this new virus before it could wreak havoc on the world. He turned to the Resistance, and they immediately began working on a plan to stop the virus. They knew that time was running out, that the virus would soon be released upon the world. The final battle was approaching, and they had to be prepared. They discovered that the virus was being kept in a secure facility in the heart of the aliens' home planet. Jack knew what he had to do. He and a team of Resistance fighters infiltrated the facility, fighting their way to the virus. They managed to get the virus, but they were cornered by the aliens. It was a fight for survival. The battle was intense, with bullets flying and screams echoing through the halls. Jack and his team fought with all their might, but they were outmatched. It looked like they were going to be defeated. That's when Sarah stepped in. She had managed to create a serum that was specifically designed to stop the megavirus. She ran into the fray, dodging blows as she approached the Resistance. They were outnumbered and outmatched, but with Sarah's serum, they were also unstoppable. They fought their way out of the aliens' facility, miraculously escaping the clutch of death. As they fled, Jack and Sarah knew that they had won. The Resistance had managed to stop the aliens, and they could feel a sense of relief wash over them. They had faced down their fears and won, saving humanity from certain doom. Jack and Sarah knew that they had more work to do. There would always be threats to humanity, and they would always be ready to fight them. But for now, they could rest easy knowing that they had saved the world, and that they had each other to rely on in the years to come. Chapter 6. The Betrayal. Jack and Sarah thought that they had won the war against the aliens, but they were wrong. There was one more threat that they hadn't anticipated, and it would come from someone they trusted. As the Resistance settled back into their lives, they received a visitor, an alien who called himself Xander. He claimed to have been part of the aliens' ruling council and had grown disillusioned with their plans. Xander came to them with information about a group of aliens who were still planning to attack humanity. He begged the Resistance for their help, claiming that he wanted to make amends for his role in the war. Jack was hesitant to trust Xander, but Sarah saw something in him that made her believe that he was sincere. They decided to work with Xander, and he proved to be a valuable asset. Xander provided the Resistance with all kinds of intelligence on the aliens' plans, and he even helped them to intercept several major attacks. The Resistance grew to trust him, and they welcomed him into their fold. That's when everything changed. The Resistance discovered that Xander had been double-crossing them all along. He had been feeding them false information, luring them into a trap. The aliens had been waiting for the Resistance to let their guard down, and now they had their chance. Xander had betrayed the Resistance, and they were now under attack. The aliens were launching a full-scale assault, and the Resistance was outnumbered and outmatched. Jack and Sarah led the charge, but it was a losing battle. The aliens had prepared for everything that the Resistance could throw at them, and they were quickly gaining ground. Just when all seemed lost, Sarah came up with a plan. She would create a virus that was specifically designed to attack the aliens, using the knowledge that Xander had provided. Jack and a team of Resistance fighters snuck into the aliens' command center while Sarah stayed behind to develop the virus. They fought their way through the facility, sabotaging the aliens' plans and searching for the virus. Finally, they found it. They had the virus, but they needed a way to get it to the aliens. That's when Xander showed up. He had come to make amends for his betrayal. Xander sacrificed himself to help the resistance. He smuggled the virus into the heart of the aliens' headquarters and triggered it. The virus spread like wildfire, infecting the aliens and destroying their ability to fight. The resistance had won, but at a great cost. They mourned their fallen comrades and the betrayal of Xander, but they also knew that they had saved humanity once again. Jack and Sarah would always remember Xander's sacrifice, and they knew that they could never let their guard down again. Betrayal could come from anywhere, even from those who appeared to be on their side. But they also knew that they had each other and the strength of the resistance to see them through whatever lay ahead. Chapter 7. The Cure. As the dust settled from the final battle against the aliens, Jack and Sarah knew that they had to focus on finding a cure for the virus that had ravaged the world. They couldn't let another outbreak occur, and they were determined to find a solution. Sarah worked tirelessly to develop a cure, poring over her research notes and experimenting with various compounds. Jack used his abilities to gather information and resources, seeking out the best scientists in the world to help them. Months passed, and their work continued. Finally, Sarah had a breakthrough. She had discovered a compound that could act as an antidote to the virus, removing all of its effects from the body. It was a momentous occasion, and they knew that they had to get the cure to the world as soon as possible. They began a mass production effort, using all of the resources at their disposal to create enough antidote for the entire world. The cure was distributed worldwide, and people lined up for miles to receive it. They were desperate to be freed from the virus that had plagued them for so long, and they were grateful to Jack and Sarah for finding a solution. Finally, the virus was defeated. The world began to heal, and people emerged from their homes to rebuild their lives. Jack and Sarah knew that there would always be challenges, but they were ready to face them. They had saved humanity twice, and they were confident that they could do it again. As the world began its slow return to normal, Jack and Sarah knew that they would always be ready to face whatever lay ahead. They would always be on the lookout for new threats, and they would always fight to protect humanity from harm. Together, they were unstoppable, and they knew that they could accomplish anything that they set their minds to. They had saved the world, and they would always be remembered as heroes.